Defeating schistosomiasis. It is an ancient, neglected parasitic disease caused by the blood flux of trematode worms of the genus Cytostoma. It is intimately associated with poverty and is grossly debilitating, leading to the chronic ill and health. The African species Cystostomas urogenital and Manzoni intestinal have the highest prevalence and cause by far the greatest burden of the disease.
Schistosomiasis is a tropical disease caused by a group of parasitic worms called schistosomes. These worms are also called blood flukes. The disease has affected people for thousands of years, and evidence of the disease has even been found in Egyptian mummies. Schistosomiasis is also known as bilharzia, named after Theodore Bilharz, who first described the parasite in humans. It's estimated that over 200 million people around the world are infected with these parasites. In sub-Saharan Africa alone, it causes over 200,000 deaths each year. Schistosomes have a very complex and interesting life cycle involving humans, snails, and fresh water, such as lakes, ponds, and reservoirs. 5 main types of schistosomes are responsible for most human disease. They differ in their distribution, the kind of disease they cause, and the type of snails that they live in. Hematobium is mostly found in parts of Africa and the Middle East and causes disease in the urinary and genital areas. Mansoni are mostly found in Africa, South America, and the Caribbean. Japonicum in parts of China and Southeast Asia, Mekong-E in Cambodia and Laos, and Guineensis in Central Africa. These affect mainly the bowel and liver. Let's have a look at their life cycle. Infected humans pass schistosome eggs through their feces or urine into fresh water. These eggs then hatch into larvae and infect certain species of snails. After a period of development in the snail, they're released back into the water in a form called cercari. The cercari swim and penetrate the skin of a human and can enter the body of someone using the water. Once in the body, they find their way through the lungs and into the liver, where they grow into adult worms. They then migrate into blood vessels surrounding specific organs, where they can live for many years. Some species of Schistosoma like to live around the bowel, whereas other species prefer living around the bladder. These adults can lay thousands of eggs a day. Some of the eggs find their way back into the water through urine or feces and start the life cycle again, but some eggs get trapped in the organs.
Applications in medicine. Only one drug, praziquantel, is available for treats all forms of schistosomiasis and is widely used. The World Health Organization set the ambitious target for global schistosomiasis control and elimination to reduce prevalence and infection intensity, morbidity, and mainly means of large-scale mass drug administration of praziquantel to school-age children and persons in the other high-risk groups. The symptoms are fever, abdominal pain in the liver and in the spleen area, bloody diarrhea or blood in the stools, cough, malaise, headache, rash, and body itches.
The Praziquantel Pediatric Consortium is a public-private partnership which is non-profit, actually includes 8 partners all over the world. The mission is to develop and register a formulation, innovative formulation of praziquantel. Praziquantel is a medicine which is used to treat schistosomiasis. This disease is a worm disease also called bilharzia or snail fever. It infects millions of people. More than 250 million people are infected in Africa, 26 million children.
Every child has the right to grow up healthy and happy. These infections are preventing the development that they should be having, the growth that they should be having.
There is a formulation of praziquantel available for adults and school-age children. The problem with this formulation, it's very big and very bitter. So it's not accepted by the young children. Astellas was a key member of the consortium because Astellas developed the formulation.
Pros and cons. Cons. Likely to be unsustainable in the long term, and praziquantel does not kill developing cytosome and does not prevent reinfection. Interpros is quite effective in the short term and is highly effective in killing adult cytostomas, and it controls morbidity well among infected persons who receive treatment.
Presence of schistosomal eggs in stool for all species, or urine for S. hematobium, under light microscopy is the most reliable diagnostic test. Moreover, direct visualization of the eggs allows for identification of the species causing infection through morphologic differences in the spines and the sizes of the eggs. However, the sensitivity of this method is limited in early infection and when the intensity of infection is low. Colonoscopy and cystoscopy have greater sensitivity but are more invasive when compared to microscopy. Therefore, these methods are reserved for cases when the diagnosis is suspected but microscopy is negative. Demonstration of eggs within the tissues on biopsy of the rectum, intestines, or bladder would be diagnostic of schistosomiasis. In the lower image, S. mansoni is visualized in the intestinal wall on colonoscopy. Serologic testing is both sensitive, greater than 90%, and specific, greater than 95%, but cannot be used to distinguish between prior and active infection. Therefore, serologic testing is only useful for ruling in schistosomiasis in travelers who have had no prior exposures to the parasite, and for ruling out schistosomiasis in endemic.
Schistosomiasis is a very common disease, affecting an estimated of 200 million persons in 78 countries.
Schistosomiasis is one of the most neglected of the tropical diseases. It is estimated that 200 million people are infected worldwide and 600 million more are at risk. This disease is common in many parts of the world, particularly Africa, the Middle East, South America, the Caribbean, and Asia, and considered an economic curse and second only to malaria in socioeconomic importance. On this map, high-risk countries are highlighted in red, while low-risk countries are highlighted in yellow. Schistosomes, or blood flukes, have a complex life cycle that begins in the human portal system. Adult schistosomes predominantly reside in the portal circulation, where 300 to 3,000 eggs are released by each female parasite every day. These eggs penetrate into the bladder or intestines and are shed in the urine or stool depending on the species. Once they reach fresh water, the eggs transform into ciliated motile embryos, Merocidia. The Merocidia must then find and enter the intermediate host, the snail. Within the snails, the Merocidia further mature into Cercaria and are released into the water in response to the presence of light. This responsiveness to light explains why the risk of contracting schistosomiasis is greatest in warm waters of daylight.
In conclusion, schistosomiasis is a disease caused by trematode worms of the genus Cytosoma. In medicine, the only drug effective to treat this disease is praziquantel, a drug that seems to be quite effective in the short term of the disease.
For the treatment of schistosomiasis, praziquantel is the drug of choice, but it is only effective against adult parasites and is ineffective against eggs and immature flukes. Dosing is dependent upon the species being treated, namely 40 milligrams per kilogram in 1 to 2 doses for S. mansoni, S. hematobium, and S. intercalatum, and 60 milligrams per kilogram in 2 to 3 doses at least 3 hours apart for S. japonicum and S. maccongi. For the treatment of Katayama fever, corticosteroids and supportive care are the mainstays of therapy, given that corticosteroids blunt the host inflammatory response to the schistosomal stage, again after a few weeks when the immature forms of parasites, which are resistant to praziquantel, have reached adolescence. Preventive measures have led to the successful eradication of schistosomiasis from previously endemic countries, such as Japan. These measures include wearing protective clothing and footwear when coming in contact with fresh water, water sanitation and sewage treatment to prevent contamination of infected stool and urine, eradication of snails with molluscidals to eliminate the intermediate host in the life cycle of schistosomes, and mass treatment programs in high-risk areas.